Hi guys, and welcome back to Comic Con Africa 2020. Sorry we had to cut that video. We only cut it because of time constraints. Because next up we have a big one. We have the new DreamWorks film, The Croods, and we got director Joel Crawford and producer Mark Swift. Enjoy.
Welcome to Comic Con. The con must go online because of COVID-19, but here we are live talking to the wonderful Mark Swift and Joel Crawford. Joel is the director and Mark the producer of the upcoming sequel of The Croods, The Croods: A New Age. Welcome, Joel and Mark, to Comic Con Online. We're honored to have you join us. Let's get into it.
So we are at DreamWorks campus here in Glendale, California, and we are sitting in different conference rooms. Mark's like 30 feet away from me. I was being very specific where we're at, but yeah, we're here at DreamWorks lot.
Yeah,
and luckily we're indoors today at DreamWorks because we have a forest fire about 12 miles away from here, and it's kind of pretty smoky. So we're happy to be indoors in an air-conditioned office.
We put all this nice artwork behind us to pretend that isn't going on out there.
It is beautiful concept work. Is this concept work from the new film?
It is. These are just a few of many pieces of visual development done to kind of set the tone for the movie as we went through. Actually, this piece behind me is one of the first ones that we painted, and as soon as the production designer Nate Ragg painted this up, I was like, I love that. It's a picture of the whole Croods family in a sleep pile, and this is the way the Croods travel, in a giant pack, and they sleep together. Everything about them is so integrated, and there's this warmth that comes from that kind of family bond. And to me, it's like they're in a cold desert, and there's this warmth that comes from them. And so right from the beginning, I was like, I love that piece. That sets the tone for pretty much the heart of the Croods.
It's a cool thing here because, we make these movies for about 3 years. And so the piece behind me and Joel, the art piece, was some of the very early pieces that the art team created. And just the way you work, they help inspire the story. Sometimes a visual image can point you in a way that loads of script pages you don't quite get. And so I think both these images really set like a tone for us that helped us kind of go, oh, that's the film we want to make. That's where we want to get to. So it's a fun part of the process.
Could you give us just like, what can audiences expect from Croods: The New Age?
Let's see how to sum all that up. We've been working on this for so long, and I just want to share everything with you.
No spoilers.
Here's I think the super simple answer is, I think audiences can expect to smile and laugh. It's, every step of making the Croods. It's been 7 years since the first Croods came out. And first of all, like, it's so exciting to bring this family back. I think the Croods family, the dysfunctionality, but the tight-knitness of all of them is such like a universally relatable thing. And so I feel like everybody has a way in, whether it's a kid or a parent or a grandparent even. And so really the Croods coming back is a big deal. But also, throughout making this story, Mark and myself, the writers, animators, storyboard artists, have had so much fun and laughed so much and tried to infuse all that into the movie. And I'd even extend that to the amazing cast we have, the returning cast of Nicolas Cage, Emma Stone, Ryan Reynolds, Catherine Keener, Clark Duke, Cloris Leachman. They're all back, and they had so much fun, and we really used that. And then we have a new returning cast that's with Kelly Marie Tran, Leslie Mann, and Peter Dinklage, which the chemistry and the charm of all these characters meeting is so fun. So hope it brings.
These are all really funny people. like in their day jobs. These are very funny people. So how much of them did, was infused throughout the piece?
The hardest thing was leaving things on the cutting room floor. Like it was like, what, you obviously can't have a 3-hour animated movie. But every time these characters interact, and like you're saying, all of our cast are so funny and so great at even improvising, and that we we use as much as we can.
That's cool.
Yeah, animation is it's a little bit different to live action in the sense of you start with a script, but you continue to evolve the script as you make it. Like one person once told me, it's closer to workshopping a play, that you continue to evolve the elements. So I do think it gives the actors, we're super happy if they have an idea in the room and just run with it. And so many times actors come up and see something and go, how about I give it you this way? Like a great example in our movie is Leslie Mann took a whole beat that happened in the movie and gave a slightly different slant on it. That was hilarious. And we were like, yeah, that's what it has to be. And we changed that section of the story to fit in with her performance because it was so funny and so unexpected. So it gives them a platform that they can do that, which is really cool.
I mean, this is what the playing is all about, the creative process, right? If you're not playing, then you can't really be creative. I'm interested in finding out, so we first met the Croods in 2013. Then there's the very successful DreamWorks TV series. How does the TV series influence the world of the Croods?
I would say not a lot, if I'm being really honest. I think what we really focused on was the first movie. And where we pick up this movie is literally, it's days later, maybe it's a few weeks later, maybe it's a month later, but we left that movie with the Croods in the search of a better place, a place Guy likes to call tomorrow. They're on the road looking for a place that they can really call home. And so that's where we pick up this movie. So I think we really focused on that first movie, which me and Joel are just huge, big fans of, and wanted to extend that story.
Yeah, I mean, to what Mark's saying, I mean, it's awesome to have the whole TV series and the first movie to jump off of, but it's so much, and I think Mark and I have the unique opportunity, in animation, especially at DreamWorks, it's rare to get to see something that comes from the studio that you had nothing to do with. So you have fresh eyes and you can enjoy it. And Mark and I both didn't work on Croods 1. And for us, we approached it as fans, where we love Chris Sanders and what Kirk D'Amico did. And we love these characters in such a beautiful first movie that we approach it as like, well, where do we want to take this wonderful family next? And how do we want to expand the world? And so really jumping off of the first movie was our main focus.
Now, Joel, you've worked as a storyboard artist on some incredible titles, including Kung Fu Panda, Rise of the Guardians, Shrek Forever After. You're also head of story on Trolls. The Croods: A New Age is your directorial debut. Could you share with us your approach on storyboarding and how that's influenced your directorial style?
Yeah, like something you said a second ago of like, playing is part of the craft of like that. It's almost like that's how you find the entertainment. That's how you find it. And in storyboarding and animations, a little bit, I think, unique unto itself, where you're kind of you're taking on a sequence in the movie, but you're drawing out the performance of the characters and how they interact. You're trying to recreate what would be in live action, the moment on the set when the actors are playing off each other. And so you have opportunities to sometimes you'll come up with a good line or something character would say, or just finding inspirations for like how a scene, can play out. And so coming from a storyboarding background, each scene I would storyboard, I would treat as almost its own little short movie. And it's a great training ground to where you expand that. And as head of story, you oversee you're kind of assisting the directors in overseeing the whole movie. So it's been a great kind of training ground of taking on more and more story at a time. And also, every time I would storyboard, I'd look for new inspiration of how to shoot something, how far tonally you could push things. And so it's a great playing ground that I think has really informed my directing style.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, I mean, you've worked also on some incredible titles, including The Road to El Dorado, Madagascar, Captain Underpants, many, many others. Over the last few years, there's been a lot of change in the industry due to distribution methods, to the market demand of different types of stories. What types of stories are exciting you as a producer right now?
You know, I go to look at all through history. The best movies are just movies that are really good. And I know that sort of seems obvious, but storytelling, like the things that make a good movie, I don't think have changed in since we started making movies. It's appealing characters, it's a great arc, it's warmth, it's making these characters really funny and appreciating their situations. And so I think it's been awesome that there's so much more opportunity now. There are so many more avenues to make animated movies. When I first started making animated movies 30 years ago, there was 1 or 2 animated movies came out per year. That was it. You know, Disney made a movie, the company I was working at might make a movie, and then DreamWorks came in, like after, in the 90s when Disney was so successful, everyone else started working on animation. And now we're at a situation, there's 20, 30, 40 animated movies come out in a year. And that's awesome because it gives so many more voices a chance to tell their story. But I think deep down, the things that were appealing about what made a great movie in the 1930s are still the same things that make a great movie now. I think it's fantastic that many different voices can tell movies now. You have women directors, you have people of color telling stories. And so hopefully what that means is we're getting a much wider variety of stories. And that's like, it's an awesome time to be making movies because of that right now.
So what would you say would be your top 3 things that make a great story or make a great movie?
Yeah, look, for me, it always comes from the characters. And if I look at Croods, we were saying me and Joel were fans of that movie. I love the characters in this film. And because you really love these warm characters, it enables then the comedy to come out of those characters. Grug is such a fantastic big teddy bear. That's this really muscly kind of, man's man, old-fashioned. But deep down, he's a sensitive soul. And when you combine those 2 things together, you have the potential for great comedy and great warmth. And so that's the thing I always look for, first of all, in any movie. What is the characters? What is the story? What is the opportunity then for laughter, tears, all those things that you want in an animated movie?
And then, of course, tech plays a huge part in animation and the creation of animation. And, the development of new software creates things like Fur, which happened, 20 years ago, that we blew our minds when we finally saw Sully come out of Monsters Incorporated, amazing stuff. Were there any tech innovations happening in the production of Croods? And if there was, how do you see this influencing other productions going forward?
Yeah, one of the coolest things, and this is something that maybe will be a little bit hidden to the audience, but was awesome for the filmmakers is, technology is very expensive, rendering's very expensive. And so we would always, see our animation in grayscale because it was too expensive to render, to put hair and fur on these characters, just as we're looking at the animators doing their work. Now they've figured out the system that we're actually seeing these wonderful renders very, very early on. And what that enables us to do is to be actually get a real sense of how this is going to look when it's finished, how the lighting's going to look, how that impacts the characters. So instead of finding these things out kind of late in the game and going, oh no, that shadow's going right across his face. How are we going to do that? We're going to have to reblock this, or we're going to have to change things. You get a sense of that really, really early, and it enables you to make choices that actually do end up on the final image. So that was something that was really, really cool for us. The other thing, which I think was a really interesting thing as we were making this movie is COVID hit, and we were probably halfway through our production process, and so we had to pivot and try and, like everyone else in this world, figure out a way to make this from home. And that's challenging for movie makers who are all used to being in a room together, all used to scribbling over people's work, walking up to the screen, pointing at things. You're suddenly having to do that in a way that is, you're all isolated from each other. So our wonderful technicians and staff here built some tools that enabled us to draw on the images we were seeing at home so that everyone could see them, so that we could quickly get to the point. And that was like something that really helped us illustrate things. And now the studio going, that's actually a really good tool. And it came out of an emergency use, but we're going to put that to use on every movie, even when we come back to the campus. So you kind of, you grow from those things.
I mean, that's also interesting because it opens up the opportunity to find voices that aren't necessarily based in California anymore, and to be able to work with other people across the world.
Yeah, I think this is going to apply to every industry in the world, and it's awesome for us because we're always looking for the most talented people, and if someone lives in Russia and we can't get them a visa, what a bummer. But now we can employ people from all over the world, which we've been doing. Our story artists are all over America because people kind of move to their home in some cases, and we've been able to use them. So I do think it enables us now to not be so focused on people who live in Los Angeles.
Well, you heard it here first, South Africans. Better start getting your portfolios ready. Making sure
Absolutely. Please send them our way. We'd love to see your stuff.
I'd love to know, Joel, for you and from you, Mark, but Joel, let's focus on you for a little bit. Like, what were your influences that helped you get into animation? And then once you were in it, who were your mentors while you were developing your career?
I think getting into animation, obviously I grew up kind of on Disney animated movies. It's weird. This is a weird one, but Robin Hood, the animated movie,
The Fox one.
Yes, was such a fun movie that really kind of opened up animation for me. As a kid, when I saw it, it was just so fun. These characters really came alive, and I loved their interaction and the joy that came from it. And so that's one that was like I think a big kind of kickstart. There's been many inspirations along the way. Another one, Who Framed Roger Rabbit was just tonally just fantastic. And so I remember watching that in a drive-in theater, sitting on the hood of the car and be able to watch that with my family. And it was funny. But it was also, I think, had a more kind of edgy, older tone too. And
it's scary when they put the shoe in the barrel and the barrel eats the shoe. It's terrifying.
Like melted before your eyes. But so those were kind of some key moments. And then Brad Bird, Iron Giant, I discovered that before I knew who Brad Bird was, and it was just this he's been that's a cool inspiration too. But I'd say it's funny when as we're working on Croods, Mark and I will be in editorial and referencing different things, and there's obviously some amazing filmmakers that inspire me. Like I'd say Frank Capra, the positivity that comes from Frank Capra movies, Akira Kurosawa, that just taps into humanity in a big way. I was always drawn into those. But honestly, we talk about Step Brothers, 21 Jump Street, and I can't leave out comedies that have really influenced me. And Judd Apatow, Chris Miller, Phil Lord, Paul Feig, all these kind of big comedies that have, I think, this organic kind of comedic character interaction. I'm just so drawn into. And so
it makes total sense because the performances that they're getting out there and the stories they're telling, they're animated in a sense. The humor is large, it's out of this world. It makes so much sense that you'd be drawn to that type of humor.
Yeah, and I think also what I'm drawn to, talk about Judd Apatow style of comedy, is this spontaneous, organic kind of character, which is such a thing to strive for in animation. You know, everything we do is so manufactured and purposefully planned, which is great. You're building a world and you're building characters and you're trying to make it feel like it's a real moment. And that's kind of been one of our goals of creating this kind of improv, spontaneous, like magic between these characters that you can feel when you watch the movie, that has this kind of organic feel to it.
I mean, comedy is amazing in that it can tap into some really dark human emotions as well. I watched King of Staten Island last night, also an Apatow film, and
Yeah,
That's good.
completely different, and it's so raw and the characters are so vulnerable, and it's such a true story. You're almost a bit shocked that someone like Judd Apatow made that film, but of course he did, because he's a comedian and he's a comedic director, so he taps into all those human emotions so beautifully.
For me, those things, like, in some ways, I always find when we call them a comedy, I kind of feel, no, I think they're a slice of life, because I think in our lives, you know, me and Joel and some of the people, we're always joking around, trying to have fun, and then things happen within our lives. And so I think a lot of Judd Apatow's films, like comedy, they're really funny, but they're not like so much about gags. They're about coming from true emotion and true feelings, which I think is kind of life. And that's why I think those things really appeal.
And
Conan, sorry, no, I interrupted you.
Jump on that, where I think, with comedy is a great way to tell the truth, like Mark is saying, like it's a great way in, and that's something like we've strived for in Croods, that it's it's a on its surface, this Croods: A New Age is a really fun, ridiculous, epic comedy, but at its heart, it's about two very different families who kind of learn that their future's its brightest when it's shared together. And there's some real warmth underneath the ridiculous insanity that goes on. But I think comedy is like a great way to make it like palatable and make it to send some messages out without it being preachy.
Mm. I mean, Conan O'Brien says that music is one of the biggest influences in comedy, and or that most comedians are often musicians or deeply into music, because it helps them understand the moment that a joke lands, or how to construct. How has music influenced you guys in creating films?
When I was in high school, I used to break dance.
You heard it here first. Joel Crawford breakdances.
I didn't say I was good, but no, I mean, growing up, see, I'm not musically talented in the way of of singing or even playing instruments.
No, Joel's not telling the truth. He's got a wonderful voice. Sing a song for us, Joel.
Sing a song, Joel.
Come on, Joel. You always sing a song. Don't be shy.
But no, definitely not a singer. But I was always fascinated by, starting with like Michael Jackson music videos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then actually I was in like junior high, and someone had a VHS tape of Beat Street. It was this 1980s like breakdancing. And the guy was like, this thing's broke. And so he chucked it in a bush. And it was like, I guess the tape had broken. I grabbed it, ran home, put like the tape. I didn't even know if it would work, but I taped it back together and put it in.
It was your first editing job.
Yeah. I seamed it back together. And I watched it, and I'd freeze. And, the 80s version of like the little, you'd have the little fuzz, but I'd try and look and try and emulate the dance moves and stuff. And so, but the contrast of doing a big move that's fluid and then into snappy stutters, and just that rhythm that you're talking about musically did impact me in terms of how to engage in a moment and then how to set up other moments. And so there is something musically that has influenced me, I'd say.
And just in terms of the Croods, like I think we definitely try and use the music for humor in this movie. We have a couple of song choices which feel odd for a caveman movie, but really help land jokes. And so it was something that definitely, like all the things, your cinematography, your acting, but your music is a cue for your comedy as well. And we've definitely leaned into this on this Croods film.
That's so cool. Guys, one last question for you before we let you go. What are you proudest about of this movie, or what do you love the most about this movie that you've made?
Go ahead, Mark.
You know, here's the thing. Look, we're excited to get the movie out and see how people feel about it, because we're so close to it now. You kind of lose a little objectivity. But I saw something last night where I've got teenage kids, boys, and I had a bunch of friends over. And they were watching animated movies last night. These are 17-year-old boys watching animated movies. And that's the thing I hope and believe Croods will be. It'll be a movie that will live on and that people will keep coming back to, because animated movies live on. And if we can make a movie that in 10 years' time people are still watching and laughing and enjoying, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and I'd say, just to the second what Mark's saying there, you know, we've had so much fun on this movie and really put it into the movie. And I'm looking forward to bringing some laughter to the world right now. It could sure use some. And so if people walk away from this with a smile on their face or some joy in their heart, that's what I think we're looking forward to sharing Croods New Age with.
That's amazing. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us, Mark, Joel, all the way from Los Angeles, which is quite far, and you stayed up quite late for us, so we really appreciate that. It's been wonderful chatting to you, gentlemen. Good luck for the launch of the film. We're excited to see it here. We can't wait for it to be here. The Croods is a huge hit in the primary school that my kid attends, so I'm going to be very excited. I'm taking screenshots of all of this to show them that I spoke to you guys.
Cool, thank you.